with our awesome post-bac and health sciences panel today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ann Palmer, and I work at the KU Edwards campus in career development. More specifically, I work with our post-bac and health sciences program in their professional development pathways. I'm sure they're going to be talking plenty more about that and what that looks like. So I don't want to say too much, but before we jump into questions with our panel, I also want to make sure to introduce Nicole Wilburn, who is joining us today. Nicole, do you want to wave at the friendly folks? Nicole is an academic success coach, and really she's so much more than that. At the KU Edwards campus, she works with all of our undergraduate science programs. She's also our main expert in admissions and academic advising in the post-bac and so much more. And so we'll save some space for Nicole later on, where she'll talk a little bit more about the post-bac program at the Edwards campus, because we do get a lot of questions about that, and she'll be able to answer questions for that. So definitely make sure to pop in on chat. And speaking of chat, we will also, so how we can take questions from you is really via chat. So whenever you want to, you're certainly welcome to pop some questions in the chat. The overall format, what we'll do today is I've come up with some questions to just kind of start off the conversation, and I'll ask our post-bacs to do most of the talking, because they're the ones with the really cool stories and interesting experiences that I want you to hear about. So feel free to pop those in the chat. We will save some space again at the end to answer any questions you have. So I think we're ready to jump in. Yeah. So Samir, let's start with you. I'm going to ask each of the post-bacs to please introduce themselves, and then just tell us a little bit about your background and where you are in your pre-med journey, and just give us a little snapshot.
Hi, everybody. I'm Samir. Let's start with, I suppose I should start with my nursing career. I got a degree from KU as an RN. I've been working for the last 4 years as a nurse. Originally came from Nepal when I was 13, and did my high school here, did my middle school here. So culturally, I'm half Nepali, half American, I should say. I joined the Army right after high school, and still in the reserves right now in the nurse corps. So I've always wanted to be a nurse ever since I was little. And through my process of actually becoming a nurse and taking care of patients, that is what I guess ignited my passion for medicine. And yeah, if you guys have any more questions, I'll elaborate. Don't know how intriguing my story is, but I am very much excited to hear from Alyssa and Devin.
Awesome. Thank you, Samir. Devin, should we go start with you, or go next with you? I guess is really what we're doing.
Sounds awesome. Good to me. My story, I'm Devin, by the way. I'm in the post-bac with these other two lovely people. One of the downsides of COVID is I haven't actually met either in person, so that's sucks. But so I got my undergrad at K-State. I graduated in 2017 with a kinesiology degree, and I always kind of had a feeling I wanted to do medicine or healthcare, something related. My father's a physician, and so I was kind of always around it, but I didn't know where that would take me. And I sort of thought it was going to be the military route, and I really wanted to do the Naval Academy, but I ended up going to K-State. And for the last 3.5 of the last 4 years, I've spent my time as a rehab tech. If Alyssa and I would have worked together, as you'll hear, I kind of would have been her lackey doing her biddings. But so I've worked for the last 3.5 years just doing inpatient rehab, helping people who have had, debilitating life events. And so I always kind of wanted to do one of the more noble medicines is rehab medicine, because it really gets down into the nitty gritty of these people who may have, a debilitating event, like I mentioned, or have a progressive disorder that they've been diagnosed with. And so part of my journey now is I want to do rehab medicine. And so the 3 years that I spent as a tech, I really got to work with a lot of really incredible physicians, especially the physician who I'm closest with. He really kind of shined a light on rehab medicine. And so that's sort of the path that I want to follow. And so right now I'm working as a COVID screener as I'm in school, because schedules didn't work out. But so a whole different side of the hospital and public interaction. But this post-bac it's really helped, and it's really, really great.
Thank you, Devin. Alyssa, on to you.
Hello, my name is Alyssa. As Devin kind of alluded to, I work in rehab. I'm a physical therapist. I graduated from KU Med Physical Therapy in 2013, and I've been working in inpatient acute care as well as acute rehab and outpatient neuro for the last 8 years. I always wanted to be a physical therapist from the get-go, and then about 4 years ago, both my parents were diagnosed with cancer about 5 months apart. And 2 years ago, I actually became the main caregiver for my mom all the way through hospice care. And it just kind of shined a light in areas that I felt called to, and areas that I feel like we may need a different viewpoint towards the end of life care. So my goal is to pursue palliative and hospice medicine, which then brought me to the Post-Bacc program to kind of fill in those holes that my PT degree didn't really cover.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And that's honestly, selfishly speaking, one of the most exciting things about working with this group of students is that they come from such diverse backgrounds, and they have such varying degrees of experience, and in such different ways. So all of you obviously, explained a little bit about coming to the decision to change gears and pursue a career in medicine. So can you talk a little bit more about that shift, if you haven't already, and think about how moving forward you feel that your current experiences in healthcare are really going to serve you. You all have really robust backgrounds already in healthcare. How do you feel that that's going to help you moving forward? Anyone, go ahead and jump in.
I suppose I could start. So with my experience in nursing, it gave me a whole new light and priorities when I think about medicine, because when I take care of my patients as a nurse, I do almost everything for my patients. I almost think of it as the patient is my patient. I manage everything for my patient, and then the doctors just come in to provide one of the many services that the patient needs at the hospital. But the more I started working with my patients and started to realize, the different roles of the different professions, the level of knowledge and just sheer, brain power, I think it takes to kind of take everything that the patient needs, everything that the patient wants in the future, take everything and kind of distill some kind of plan of care that is provided by the physician. Usually I work in PACU, so I just have all my orders from my anesthesiologist. I don't think about, this patient needs these medications and can't have those medications because of da-da-da reason. I get to focus on my patients, and if they're in pain, I see what orders I have, give them what pain medications they need. And I started realizing over time that, hey, I do really care about why I'm doing the things I'm doing. And my patients ask me questions about their surgical side, which I don't have a lot of knowledge about currently, and just really made me want to learn why I do the things I do and what I can do for my patients to help them address their problems. So whatever that brought them into the hospital in the first place, if I can do something to help address those issues, that would be very satisfying for me, at least. And working with physicians and getting to hear how their thought process goes in when they develop care plans for patients, that I thought was fascinating, and I fell in love with it. So anybody else?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to jump in and ask a quick follow-up question, because, you know, that it is a very interesting, you know, kind of shift in how you're thinking about this. Have you already? So Samir has already gained an acceptance into KU School of Medicine, and so knowing that, have you started, like, in your work now as a nurse, are you looking at things differently? Are you, like, has anything changed even already?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's changed a lot of my perspective. So whenever I took care of my patients, I would just kind of focus on the nursing aspects, and reading the patient's documentation, seeing what do I need to do as a nurse to take care of this patient best. So I would look at things like, can this patient walk? Do I need anything to help them assist get to the restroom? What kind of diet do they have? That kind of thing. Now I find myself reading more about the H&Ps, history and physical, how they got into the accident that took them to the hospital, what preceding events have occurred in the hospital. Did they have a DVT at one point? Any allergies? What kind of medications they're on? Why are they taking those medications? Like, a lot. It's taught me to look at a lot more of the documentation and look at the patient a little bit differently, and I guess think a little bit more deeply about why and how I do the things I do.
Yeah, very interesting. Who else? Who else would like to pop in on that?
Yeah, I go. Devin, or you want me to go?
I agree with everything Samir said 100%. I think Alyssa will, concur with what I'm about to say in regards to the therapy aspect of things, being more or less the wingman going into a room or to a treatment with any patient, whether acute or acute care rehab, is that you, from the therapy point of view, have to take into account many aspects of their life, what family situation is like, what home setup is like, what their life was like prior to, currently, and then what it could be like following discharge. And so a lot of what therapy and I think rehab medicine, kind of gearing the mindset that I am in, is encompassing all of that, like Samir said, and what kind of makes this person, this patient, who they are, and all the surrounding aspects. And so the thing with therapy that I think is that it requires a lot of creativity. And so in many of the treatments that I would help with, day in and day out, it was a matter of, all right, this is a barrier that we have. What can we do to overcome it safely? And things in that regards. And so, and as being, kind of the just odd man out at times, the low man, I was the only, non-certified individual on the care team, in regards to, credential licensure. But in many aspects, I was kind of the creative one, when helping to develop, whether it be odd treatment plans or things that would help the patient following discharge or in their current recovery, and then going forward. And so, in observing a lot of the medicine that comes of that, it's a lot, on a more grand scale, as Samir was saying, but on a more grand scale with the physician aspect and what they have to take in order to make these decisions to determine a plan of care. And so my mindset right now in my time on rehab, and even right now as a screener, is kind of just talking to people, figuring out what their their own concerns are, or what they think a barrier for their own care is. And so I think that's a really important aspect, and something that'll help me going forward is having had the opportunity to interact with individuals on such a personal level to really get into the nitty-gritty of what their care means.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Alyssa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with both of them. I feel like having a different clinical background just lays a solid foundation of how to connect with patients on a personal level. As a nurse, as a physical therapist, I mean, we're the ones that are doing the basic human needs, taking a patient to the bathroom, helping them learn how to get out of bed, stand up, have enough balance to get dressed, do those kind of the things that we take for granted every day, and teach these people how to regain their life back. And, we're setting goals for them, but then also taking the time to hear what their goals are, and giving them the steps and the bridges to reach their own goal. And I think having this perspective will just help us connect with our patients on a deeper level, in a quicker way than maybe if, I had just gone straight to med school, I might not have had this perspective. And as a physician, I think, they're the team leader, and they set the tone and the feel for the whole medical team. And so you want someone who is viewing each patient as a person and as an individual, and helping them regain whatever they've lost and getting them back to where they want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Thank you. So I think, the next question that I had for you all is a little more reflective of your undergraduate self, right? You guys have all had, you've had a little bit of time in between when you graduated from your undergraduate years until now when you're applying for medical school. So if you could go back and say anything, or give your undergraduate self some solid advice, what do you wish you knew then that you know now? Did I say that right? You know what I'm trying to say.
At least for me, I'd probably tell my undergraduate self to work hard but worry less, because some of the things that I used to always worry about is, what are the things that I think I should know that I don't even know that I should know? Like, what are the questions I should ask to get the right answers when I don't even know what questions I should ask in the first place? Just do what you think you want to do, and then along that way you find the right questions to ask, and when you get those answers back, you kind of reflect on that and say, hey, is this looking like what I pictured it would look like? Is this the route I want to go with my life, with any experience? At least in terms of nursing, I ended up becoming a nurse, enjoying the process a lot, and I still love being a nurse. If I hadn't gone that route, I doubt that I would appreciate medicine the way I do now. So I don't think I would change anything. Just I would probably change how I feel at the time. It's always hard when the future's uncertain for you to, ground yourself, I guess. But I would say work hard and don't worry so much.
Yes. I think we can all take a dose of that for sure. Who else? Anyone else like to jump in on that one?
I would tell my undergrad self just to enjoy the ride and enjoy the process. Each experience plays the role that it's supposed to play. You might not know it at the time, but one builds upon the other and brings you to where you're supposed to be. And I worked as a CNA in undergrad, and I was doing it just to beef up my application for a PT school. But looking back, that was the start of everything. And it makes you appreciate each person on the medical team and what each person does in the grand scheme of patient care. So Yeah.
Yeah, great. Anything from you, Devin?
Emphasize everything they just said. But I think from a personal note, I think telling my undergrad self-care, that's something I think that over the last few years has become obviously much more mainstream to an extent, but it's so important. I think if I would have paid more attention back then, or even really any semblance of it, I think it might be I might be on a different road today. But reemphasizing just the experiences that you're having now definitely do form the foundation of where you're going. I don't know that I would change anything if I could, just because it's led to this point now. But in the moment, don't get caught up. I'm doing this so I can look really good on my resume. Try to actually take it in and learn from it, because had I thought of that, when I first started as a rehab tech, I was just like, oh, it's a job. It's something that will look good some point down the road. But little did I know that now I've created such amazing networks and new friends and experiences that it's become more than just a resume booster. It's become, a part of my life, and people from that have become a part of my life. And so enjoy the ride for sure.
Yeah.
To add
Devin,
to that, Devin, I just wanted to add to that real quick. What you said was so true. You should pursue your passion, and I guess I should say really do what you actually want to do rather than just trying to build your resume, because you don't know how it's going to help you in the future. I was talking to a surgery resident. He's one of the best surgery residents I've ever met. Super thoughtful, kind, caring, a little bit older than the rest of the residents. So one day I asked him, hey, this is probably not your first profession. What did you used to do? And then he looked at me straight in the face and he said, I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. And I don't know what aspect of that helped him become such a good surgery resident, but I have no doubt that all that experience, all that stress that he probably went through in the Air Force, trying to get into a fighter jet and fly at twice the speed of sound, that's helped them immensely be a surgery resident and do highly stressful surgeries, and also deal with people in a high stress environment. So you never know how your experiences could help you. So don't hesitate to do what you actually want rather than just try to build your resume.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I'm so glad that you all tapped into that. And I think, Devin, something that you mentioned about building your network, I think is another big question a lot of times that I hear from undergraduate students that are really, especially right now, that are trying to gain those experiences, that are trying to get those shadowing opportunities. They're trying to figure out places to volunteer. Can you talk a little bit about how you built your network? I mean, Alyssa, you talked about the fact that, you really started out as a CNA, like legit as a resume booster, but it really added to your knowledge and your growth. Can you talk, any of you, but can you talk about how you built that network and how you gained experiences?
I can go. So when I started out, just where I was on rehab, and so I'll do a name drop because Alyssa and I work for the same health system, just different entities. So Dr. Steinley, he is the director of rehab services for the health system. And one day after working there for a few months, a few of the therapists encouraged me to just go talk to him. They're like, you'll enjoy his story, go talk to him. So Dr. Steinley was a rehab tech also. He got his master's. He did all this stuff before even starting medical school. And so when I first went up to him and introduced myself and was like, hey, I want to go to med school some point down the line. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, well, how old are you? I was like, at the time I was 23. And he goes, you're fine. He's like, I didn't start med school till I was 32. And now he's the director of a major health systems rehab services. He's one of the most, beloved physicians in our health system or that I've worked with, but he kind of set that tone. And so from there, I just I kind of was just me, and I just worked and introduced myself to people, excuse me. And from there, just kind of made a name for myself as being somebody who had answers to most questions. And so that was, hospital wide, and just, piece by piece by piece, just a new person each day I would meet, whether it was a new nurse, a new care partner, which is kind of a term we use for, CNAs, or just anybody for that matter, because you never know in any instance if you might need their help with something real quick, be like, hey, so-and-so, can you come help me? Or if they need your help. And so it kind of personally just grew from there. I had outside influence as well, people I might have known ahead of time or outside of my work network, if you will. But even to today, I'm still meeting, new physicians, new nurses, new administrators, things and people who I don't go into it thinking, oh, how can they help me? What kind of letter will they be able to write me if I get on the end with them? I don't really care about that. It has naturally come to where those people have offered to write it without even trying to solicit one from them, which kind of takes the pressure of asking them away. But that's never really been my goal. My goal is to try to interact with as many people and learn as much as I can from them, just to be kind of the best that I can be, in whatever position I'm in, but with the obvious hope of medicine and down the road.
Awesome.
I agree with you, Devin. I mean, I think it's kind of hard when you work in a hospital not to network. Every interaction, every person you meet, I mean, you're just naturally networking constantly. And I also think when you take the time to personally share something about yourself, you kind of get those people that are like, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? It kind of sounds like their journey. They may be able to shed some light on it. And I know that when I decided to pursue a medical degree or medicine degree, I had multiple nurses telling me that I should talk to these physicians because they started off as a PT and then became a physician, or this one really resonates with what I want to do, and she's the head of the palliative team. Have you talked to her? And so you just start these natural paths to these people. And I've actually reached out to everyone that someone has suggested, and they've all been open to meeting and talking and sharing their story, and it just keeps the ball rolling.
I love hearing you say that. Samir, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. I'm kind of going to go counter to that, but I agree with everything you said. When I first realized I wanted to be a doctor, I actually hesitated to tell anybody in my family, anybody at work, because I didn't want them to see me in a different light, especially at a work setting. Because I was a good nurse, still am a good nurse. I want them to view me as a good nurse. I didn't want them to say, oh, he wants to be a doctor later. I didn't want that in people's thoughts as they thought of me. But that was a completely wrong way to go about it. I just want to, let you know that people make mistakes, and I definitely should not have done that. I don't know what I was thinking. So maybe like 6 months, 8 months into it, like I was fairly into the process of even applying, and I kind of slipped out that I wanted to go into medicine. And that moment I told somebody, they were like, oh my God, you're a great nurse. You'd make a great physician. Why did you not tell us this whole time? And then I think I got like 2 different people telling me that they have to write me a recommendation letter. So because I was courageous enough to even like tell somebody I wanted to pursue medicine, that like I got these great letters of recs, and probably helped get me into medicine in the first place. Don't be shy to tell people, what your goals and aspirations are.
That is such an awesome point. And I think, one of the things that I'm always preaching on the career side of things is networking is really, it's not a suit and tie, go to the event, have the glass of wine thing all the time. It's really about building relationships. It's really about meeting people and just genuinely connecting with them. And it seems like, and Devin, like when you were talking about it just kind of naturally came to the point where typically people will say, yeah, if you ever need, if you ever need a recommendation, or if there's any way I can help connect you. And it seems especially so in healthcare. And I don't know, and I'm not a clinician on any level. I observe, this just observing from the outside. But having worked in a medical center and witnessing a lot of interactions, it seems like that's just kind of a really cultural thing, that people are like, oh yeah, you should talk to so-and-so, or oh yeah, well, I mean, you're in a helping profession, right? You want to help other people, and you're also lifelong learners, right? You're always doing something, right? Whether that, is maybe, Samir, instead of going a physician route, you wanted to become, an APRN, or do some sort of advanced nursing degree, or whatever. I just think that, and to your point, they won't ever know if you don't tell them, and if you don't just have the conversation. And so it's not being boastful or anything like that. It's just simply kind of giving them a life update. It's really, really what it's all about. And I think, we have a great question here from Corey that ties into this. But what do you think, what aspects from your undergraduate degree have helped you in your post-bac studies? Kind of dovetailing into that a little bit. What helped you? What aspects, whether that's coursework, whether that's volunteering, shadowing, whatever has really prepared you for the post-bac?
At least in terms of motivation, being a nurse and, giving all the medications I give on a daily basis, and all the physiological symptoms I see in patients, actually taking those classes in my post-bac program and looking at the physiology of why things are happening the way it's happening, it just gives me so much more motivation to learn it. It doesn't feel like a chore. It's interesting because I can relate it to real life. So at least because of my nursing background, it's made me a little more successful than I would have been in my studies in post-bac.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I agree. Just being able to clinically apply it. It's cool looking at how I approached patient care pre-post-bac, just kind of reviewing the patient chart and what I would breeze over, versus when I approach it now, I'm like, oh, I actually know that. And I just learned that in infectious disease or whatever class. And so it just adds a little more fun when you're chart reviewing. To go back to my undergrad, that's going way back. It's like 10 years ago. I think just having the mindset in undergrad, I knew that the PT path was going to be competitive. And so it just kind of laid the foundation for not shying away from the hard work and putting in the extra time and effort that I had to for my undergrad degree to get into PT school. And that same mindset has helped get through the post-bac, because the post-bac isn't an easy pathway, some high level classes. And so it gives you the right mindset.
Yeah. Anything to add, Devin?
Two things. So the first being, not even really so much in studies as much as socially. So I was pretty introverted when I started my undergrad. But I adopted, or rather they adopted me, a group of friends who kind of broke me out of that shell. And so a big aspect that I think is important going forward is being able to just converse with people, whether it's other coworkers, patients, you name it. And so I think that was a big thing from undergrad, is just kind of going outside of comfort zone a little bit. The second thing is that I was kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum. So I'm in the post-bac really because I sort of fell off of that train, because where I was pre-med to start undergrad, but just kind of fell away from it. And so it kind of taught me everything not to do for the post-bac. And so it's I'm not taking it as much for granted as I thought, the undergrad, in that I'm like, oh, this will never apply going forward or anything like that. But then upon shadowing with some of the physicians, it's, doing chart reviews, things of that nature, you realize, oh my God, we just went over this in biochem. I should probably pay more attention. Things like that. And so I definitely learned things not to do. And so I've been applying that, even, the lessons from undergrad to now, into whether it be socially and interacting in the clinical healthcare setting or academically, and how to approach studies or how not to approach studies.
Yeah. There's always something to be learned, right? So kind of shifting that question a smidge, how do you feel that the Post-Bacc has benefited you to become an applicant for whatever program that you are applying for? What specifically were you hoping to gain out of it? And how do you feel that, it's prepared you ultimately?
Well, for me, working as a nurse, you have all the nursing knowledge. It's a completely different discipline, I feel like. So, working clinically with patients is what made me want to be a doctor. But the academic side is a whole different ballgame. And I, didn't have the fundamentals I needed to even apply to med school, I felt like. And taking those actual post-bac classes, I'm taking immunology now, and neurobiology, going through those lectures with my professors and looking at the textbooks. I find myself like searching the internet for things I don't understand very well, and the lectures I end up on the internet is an actual like medical school lecture that's teaching the same stuff that I'm learning in my post-bac program. So I feel like that's just a telltale sign that I'm learning the stuff that I'm supposed to be learning to prepare me for med school, if it's the same content that I'm going to be learning in med school. So I don't know how can you get closer to being prepared for med school if you're already learning the content that you're going to be learning in med school. I'm super excited.
That's great to hear. That's really great to hear. Anyone else?
For sure. The classes are not easy, as Samir saying. So like neurobiology right now, our course content, our lecture content is from a medical school book, online book. So I mean, it's dense stuff. And the other instructors, the other courses, they all know what they're doing. They're all literal experts in this, and so they will challenge. They do challenge us, so they will challenge you should you go down the path of the post-bac. But additionally, as far as getting prepared, whether it be for the admission cycle or the MCAT or you name it, as far as trying to get to med school, there's a course, there's a resource, there's someone to kind of help you in that path. And so it's great. It's been very beneficial. It's sort of been everything I was hoping it would be and more. But to get that challenge that med school will inevitably be.
Thanks, Devin.
Yeah, even during my interviews, one of our interviewers specifically asked, "You're in the post-bac program at Edwards campus, taking those classes?" And he literally did checkmark stuff. So I think they look into that.
Yeah, they know each other a little bit. Yeah. That's awesome. Alyssa, anything from you?
Yeah, I mean, I just echoing what they said, it sets the tone. I don't think I've ever heard so many times you're in a 500 level class. I'm not just going to ask you rote memorization questions on your exam. I want you to apply it. I want you to really think about this and take it to the next level. And honestly, at times I feel like the post-bac program has, forgive me, PT school, been more of a challenge than PT school. It's been grueling, but it's been fun. And it makes you feel like, even though this is a challenging coursework, it lets me know that I'm heading in the right direction because I'm enjoying it, even though it is tough.
Awesome. Thank you.
And coursework, if I may add.
Yeah, please go.
Coursework and, the preparations and whatnot aside, going back, I think it's also, COVID aside, it's helped with networking as well a little bit. I don't think I would have known who Alyssa was had it not been for Dr. Steinley. He was like, oh, hey, there's somebody else that I know that works down at Plaza that's going to be going, and things like that. And just meeting people when we do have in-person courses, it's been really cool. And so I look forward to getting to know a lot of the people who are in the Post-Bacc now as we kind of finish things out somewhat. But going forward, it's definitely allowed that aspect for networking too.
Yeah, and perfect segue into Corey's question about what kind of adversity have you faced in your post-bac studies with COVID-19's impact, or how you overcome this adversity, or how has that been a factor for you?
I'm not gonna lie, it's actually kind of helped me.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I have a 5-week-old, and so honestly, being able to do a mix of in-person and online, it's actually benefited me. Now, I will say it puts more on your own responsibility to really make a plan and stick to your plan, because I feel like when you're in person, you kind of have that check-in. But when you're always, you can take the class whenever, you really have to say, I'm going to take the class on this day and do the quiz on this day, and really plan out where each class fits into your schedule. But yeah, overall, honestly, it's kind of helped me. That's not very helpful probably for most people.
Actually, I agree with you, Alyssa. You do get to share a little bit more resources with your classmates when you're in person. There's a common camaraderie that you don't really get with the live. But yeah, if you're working professionals already, or you have other obligations, and you may not be able to meet specific timelines for classes. Now the classes are all online. You can watch it live. You can watch it later. You can take the quiz when you want. It's like a 24 to 48 hour window for an exam. That's actually kind of helpful. So, but I do miss not having, classmates that I get to speak to every day and share resources, because sometimes they share tips and tricks that I'm having trouble with. That would be helpful. There's online forums and discussion boards, but it's not the same.
Yeah, very true.
I think comparing fall semester to the spring semester, fall semester, and just in the courses I was in, it was a lot of lecture heavy online content, and then the in-person that we would have was more discussion based. And so that was nice, but it kind of, as Alyssa was saying, you could kind of get behind on content. You really had to, set a schedule. You have to stay on top of stuff, or else you'll get behind. And come test time, it's like, oh, while I have a week to take this test, or 48 hours to take this test, I should probably spend the next 24 watching all the videos again. Whereas this semester, for most of the courses, it's been kind of the opposite, whereas lectures have been live or in person, and then discussions kind of take place online at times. But I definitely do miss the aspect of, especially the first semester in the fall, of being able to, interrupt lecture and ask questions at the time. So I feel that there might have been something lost, or more that could have been learned at that time. But yeah, the camaraderie that we have, especially sometimes in person versus online too, just having random conversations in the chat boxes. I think it's been worth it. Not ideal, obviously, at times, but making the most of it when we can.
I feel like we're having true confessions of post-bac students right now. It's awesome. No, I think it's great. And you know what? We've learned a lot about that formatting as well, and what's beneficial. Certainly, Nicole and I, we talk about this all the time, and the flexibility that we're able to provide students, and just communicating with you guys via Zoom and having, it's just so much more accessible, especially given your schedules, it just allows you, I feel like I have more flexibility to meet with you one-on-one than I did pre-COVID, because people didn't really know what Zoom was, or they thought it was less than or something if you weren't meeting in person, you know what I mean? So I totally get where you're coming from, and I think it has opened up a flexibility, and moving forward it'll be really interesting to see, what sticks and what goes back. So and yeah, that's actually a perfect segue. You guys have really talked about the student aspect of the post-bac, and so I would love to hear Nicole's official talk about the post-bac and whatever she would like to say today.
Yeah, you guys have made my job really easy.
I know, right?
Thank you for sharing all the great things about the program. I guess to get down to the nitty-gritty of the program, we have 2 tracks for the post-bac program. The first track is the one that all 3 of these are on, which is the health science track. And it's going to have 28 credit hours of kind of upper level biology coursework that you're going to take. If you were a non-biology major, that upper level biology coursework is going to look really sexy on your med school application, provided, of course, that you get, good grades. And of course, strong recommendation letters from your faculty members are something that you can look forward to, again, provided that you are a strong student. If you were already a biology major, we do have a track that might work for you. It is the research science track. This one is also good for folks who aren't necessarily on the med school path, but are maybe more looking for of a research background. So the health science track follows our molecular biosciences degree. It's evening classes. The research science track follows our biotechnology degree. And it is more daytime classes, a little bit more hands-on coursework. And again, that might be another opportunity for somebody who's already taken biology coursework to have another side of biology that they can add to their arsenal of tools. So yeah, so 2 tracks depending on who you are and what it is that you want to do. Our program, though, isn't just about classes. There's some other really cool things about it as well. In the first semester, you'll do a Pathways in Career or Pathways in Health Science Careers class that will be with the fantastic and amazing Anne, who's been leading us today. And in that, Anne will work with you one-on-one, small groups, to kind of take a look at your med school application, kind of your portfolio and who you are as a student. She's going to help you identify areas that you're really strong in. Also maybe help you identify areas that are maybe weaknesses, and think about how we might be able to patch those up as well. We're also going to challenge you to think about what happens if you don't reach your goal. So let's say you do the post-bac and you want to go to med school, you apply and you don't get in. We're going to challenge you to think about what's next, because I don't want you applying to med school over and over and over again and just spinning your wheels. We want you to have a backup plan so that you can move forward no matter what life brings to you. So that's a little bit about what happens in the Pathways class. Then in the second semester of the post-bac program is our practicum. And after COVID, when we can go out and do things in person again, our hope is that we'll be able to provide experiences or help you find experiences that you can use to help patch up those areas in your application that weren't so strong for you. And so what are those experiences going to be? It just depends, because it is going to be individualized for you and your application in areas that you need to work on. So it just kind of depends. Also depends on what kind of opportunities we can find at that time as well. So yeah, so classwork, some career counseling. It's a 1-year program typically. So students typically start in the fall semester and finish up in the year or finish up in the spring semester, although there is flexibility. We do have some students that aren't doing it all within 1 year, depending on your life, your job, your whatever it is, we can work with you. And it is kind of an individualized program. So I would love to set up a time to talk with anyone who has questions about the Post-Bacc. I would encourage you to go to our website, the Edwards campus website, and check out the program guide for it. If you put your name and your email address in there, we'll email you a copy of the program guide so that you can take a look and see what kind of classes it would be that you would take, and we'll reach out to you and see if we can set up an appointment for you and I to talk more about the program and whether it would work for you. So, yeah.
You're so awesome, Nicole. See, like she just wraps it up, puts a little bow on top. It's fantastic. Thank you. I think that we do have a few people that are watching live, and so as promised, I want to hold a few minutes here at the end to answer any questions that you have. If you all have anything about, well, not anything, but if you have any questions that have kind of popped up from our conversation today, please, feel free to pop something into the chat, and we're more than happy to give you a answer. We're talkers. We can talk.
So while we're waiting for questions to come in, Anne, if I can just say one more thing,
please,
which is about money, because money is important. I know this Post-Bacc program is eligible for financial aid, and so I know that that's really important for students. You could be eligible for up to $12,500 in loans, which really is just about enough to cover the cost of the program. Not to cover, your living expenses and your food and the TV you want to buy, but to cover the cost of tuition. You could be eligible for that financial aid. So that I know that that's an important aspect of it, and wanted to make sure and share that.
Yeah, super important. Thank you. Anything else? Any questions or anything from our Post-Baccs that you thought about as we were talking, or any parting words of wisdom that you would like to give us? No. Well, I am just really grateful for your time. I know you were all incredibly busy. And on top of working, I know, just hearing about the courses themselves makes me stress out. I'm glad I don't have to take them. But I hope this was helpful for those that are watching today and that will be watching the recording of this later. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out with questions that you have. You can always head over to the KU Edwards website and find more information on the Post-Baccalaureate in Health Sciences is the official title. We call it a Post-Bacc, BACC. But yeah, we're excited to have this opportunity for you. I'm very grateful to our panelists for providing such insights today. And I think we'll go ahead and sign off and say, have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend.
Rock chalk, everyone.
That's right.